You're listening to V&A Shipping, written and read by J.R. Murdoch. For more information, please visit ofgnomesandDwarves.com. Elsa finished working on Joey's wounds, and even wrapped his wrist with an ace bandage. She'd been right about it being sprained. After 2 more sticks soaked in mint-flavored liquid, Joey felt good as new. Until he stood up. His body felt a little stiff, but the pain was muted enough for him to function. Elsa closed up the medical kit, picked up her stool, and scooted back down the hallway. Joey peeked around the corner, but with little light it was difficult to see where she'd gone. He assumed the kitchen wasn't that way, and didn't want to offend the nice lady after the attention she'd given him. After a short bit, she came shuffling back into the room and smiled at him. "Let's go into the kitchen and make some tea." She shuffled her way across the room and through the open doorway. Joey thought he passed through a time warp and into his grandmother's kitchen, straight from the 50s. All the appliances were olive green and looked brand new. The floor was covered in a yellow, flower-patterned linoleum, and the counters were tiled in pink. It was an offensive clash of colors. Elsa picked up a white teapot from the stove. It had fighting chickens or roosters on the side, and went to the sink to fill it. Once it was full, she returned to the stove, lit a match, and got a fire going under the teapot. She fetched a ceramic tea set from a cabinet. Joey noticed it was the only thing inside that particular cabinet, as if it had been waiting there all along for her to come in and use it. "Please, sit down." Joey sat at the small table that was positioned in one corner of the kitchen. Its window was covered with the same heavy drapery and lace curtains. She set 1 cup in front of him, and 1 on the opposite side of the table. "Do you take cream with your tea?" Joey had never had tea in his life. Should he say yes? Would she get offended if he didn't? What was the right answer? Sure. I don't have heavy cream, so would you prefer milk or half and half?" Her serene smile and the way she folded her hands to her chest made Joey think of a doting old lady waiting on her grandchild. "Milk is fine." Joey looked down at the empty teacup and then back up at Elsa and remembered his manners. "Please?" "Very well." By the time she made it to the refrigerator and back, the teapot started to whistle. As it sat on the stove and hollered for her to retrieve it, she placed several tea bags into a small white pot, and left the lid off. She emptied the contents of the kettle into the pot, and placed the lid on it. She finally sat down once the kettle was returned back to the stove. "You've got a strong face." "Huh?" Joey had been entranced by the steam rising from the spout of the teapot. "I've said, you've got a strong face. You remind me a lot of my son, Victor." "So, why don't you talk to him any more?" Elsa poured tea and sighed. There was a deep rattle in her chest as she spoke. Joey hadn't heard it before. "As I told you, it's really my fault. He was such a headstrong boy. I tried to keep him out of trouble as much as I just wanted to raise him right. Can you understand that?" "Sure." "You see, he always wanted to go places. He never wanted to be a good boy and just stay home. I've seen you ride by on your bike before, with your scraggly hair and all." She waved a finger at him. "I can't help but feel like you two are a lot alike. Are you like that?" "Headstrong, you mean? I guess I never really thought of it before. I mean, I get it into my head that I want to do something and I just do it. Is that what you mean?" "Do you always listen to your parents? Do what they say when they say? I suspect you're a good boy, but you've got your own ideas." "Well, yes." "Do you ever get that feeling like no one understands you?" "Well, my friend Carlos does." "So one person in the great big world understands what you're about." Joey had to think about that. Sure, he and Carlos were friends, but Carlos, along with the excessive record collection, also collected comic books, movies, games, darn near anything he could get his hands on. His parents had converted their basement for him and told him he could live there as long as he wanted to. Joey's parents wouldn't even get him a used car so he can get around easier, and they expected him to know what he wanted to do once he graduated high school. "No, I guess he really doesn't understand me either." "My Victor was the same way. He only had one friend, and though they did everything together, Victor was happier with his dog down in the park playing fetch and daydreaming. He also spent a lot of time down at the Astronaut Academy when it was downtown. He dreamed of going into space, but the men there would always tell him he wasn't fit enough or he was too small. That must have been tough. When was the academy there? Elsa's eyes misted over. Around the same time Victor left. But where did he go? I knew he wanted to go into space so badly. Oh, I shouldn't tell you these things. But she was telling him. This woman looked as though she hadn't changed anything in her house since sometime in the late 50s or 60s. How long ago could it have been? It just occurred to Joey that there was no radio or television in the house, or at least not one that he could see. Elsa? She wiped a tear from her eye. I'm sorry, Joey. It's been so long. It was back in '64. Victor's father, Hector, had built the machine. Hector worked at the academy. He brought work home with him all the time. It was a promise he made to Victor. One day, Hector disappeared, but his dreadful machine was still there. A machine? You're confusing me. He built a machine to send himself into space. He built it for Victor, but he tested it on himself. He built a rocket? Heavens, no. This was much different. Tears were streaming down Elsa's face. He called it a transporter. I have no idea where it transported him to, but obviously he never found his way back. Hector transported himself into space? How did he know where he was going to end up? I don't think he ever knew that. All I know is that every day, since the day Hector left, I've gone out to that garage to see where Hector is and why he hasn't returned. It's been such a difficult life, but being that Hector worked for the government, I've been able to manage on his pension and life insurance. I've never told anyone that he had that awful machine in the garage, for fear they'd take that part of him from me. But, Elsa? Joey leaned in closer. All thought of his pain had gone. He had to know. What happened to Victor? Elsa pulled a handkerchief from the pocket of her house dress and dabbed at the corner of her eyes. In '72, I showed him where his father went. Aboard the police cruiser Apprehension stood a stocky man dressed in a clean, pressed uniform. His chest bore several medals and a large gold badge. Atop his head was a broad-brimmed hat. His eyes were covered with mirrored sunglasses, and he held an unlit cigar in his mouth. Sheriff B.T. Justice watched as the SS Acid Rat disappeared off the viewport. It had stretched out into the distance and vanished. He gnawed on the end of his cigar for a moment. They'd gotten away. They'd left his jurisdiction.
I hope somebody has got their trajectory.
3 officers snapped their mouths closed and turned back to their consoles and typed furiously. Sheriff Justice wasn't one to joke, and he was more dangerous when he didn't scream. He tapped a riding crop against his leg. Even though he'd never ridden a horse in his life, was no reason for him not to have a riding crop. It made a great tool for discipline of his crew.
Junior!
A portly lad who looked to be the twin of B.T. Justice, minus the hat, medals, sunglasses, cigar, and about 30 years, sprang from a nearby chair and saluted the sheriff. Yes, Dad?
Junior, I want you to get on the con. Better yet, I want you to get someone else to get on the con and contact the GCP central office. I need to travel out of my jurisdiction.
But we can't do that.
Don't tell me what I can and cannot do. I am your father, and I am your superior. Do we have an understanding?
Yes, sir. That's what the sheriff wanted. Order. Even if he had to raise his voice to get it, he was going to get cooperation. A young, bright-faced officer turned around. I've got them. How rude.
You've got them what?
The officer swallowed and eyed the riding crop. I've got them, sir.
Much better. Where are they?
They're sitting just outside our solar system. If we can get close enough, we can use the tractor beam and not leave our jurisdiction.
Now, how close is close? We are the law, and we're not going to be breaking any galactic laws just to catch one criminal.
The officer turned back to his counsel and studied the screen for several seconds.
Come on, boy. We don't have all day. I'm sure they're not just sitting there and waiting for us to get over there and catch them. I need numbers.
Yes, sir. It looks like they're still inside the Kuiper Belt. They haven't officially left our jurisdiction yet.
Junior!
The portly officer turned. Yes, Dad.
Do you have anyone on the con yet?
Officer Branford is on the con. He's getting in touch with the GCP office. The GCP was the Galactic Central Point Central Office. They were the central of all authority in the galaxy. No one did anything without first consulting the GCP office. Even BT Justice wasn't about to go against their rulings. He ground his teeth into his cigar and narrowed his eyes, as if that would help him see the SS Acid Rat sitting just on the edge of his system.
Let's get out there. I want to see if we can catch him before he takes off. If we can't, I want the GCP officer in command on the line to issue a pursuit warrant for the entire crew of the SS Acid Rat.
Sheriff Justice strode along the walkway between the consoles where officers scanned screens and typed on keyboards in preparation with another confrontation with the criminals. He would smile, but he didn't want to appear overly confident. He wasn't even sure who piloted the ship. He only knew the person must be crafty. Crafty enough to slip his grasp. He wasn't going to let it happen twice.
Daddy! Junior, how many times have I told you not to call me that?
Sorry, Daddy. Sir, we've got GCP on the con.
Keep them on hold. Let's go catch those lawbreakers.
Yes, sir.
Pilot, why aren't we there yet?
The lightspeed engines are still charging.
We're not making a jump that far. I want us in the Kuiper Belt, and I want us there now.
Justice swatted the man on the shoulder with a riding crop. There was more than one way to motivate this crew, and physical violence was one. The view screen blurred, and the police ship Apprehension, BT Justice's pride and joy, jumped to the Kuiper Belt. Joey's mind reeled in disbelief. Had this woman, Elsa, just confessed to helping the two people closest to her kill themselves, or to their murder? Could it be that she was insane and trying to cleanse her conscience before she died herself? Joey couldn't do anything except sit with his mouth agape, dumbfounded.
I'm not sure why I'm telling you all this, but it does feel good to tell someone.
Joey shook his head. She narrowed her eyes, and a thin-lipped smile crossed her face. Her voice quieted to a whisper.
You don't believe me. You think I killed them.
Joey, who'd taken a sip of his tea, gagged on the hot liquid. He shakily put down the cup.
Miss, I'm not sure. Oh, I couldn't have killed either one of them if I tried.
She sat back with her cup and took a long smell from her teacup.
This was my husband's favorite.
Miss?
Please, call me Elsa. I already feel old enough without you calling me Miss.
Joey eyed Elsa and waited. She smiled, and it would have been a pretty smile had she teeth in her head. She seemed to be trying to win his trust for some reason.
I don't know what to make of all this. It's all quite strange. Do you want to see it?
See what?
Why, the machine, of course.
Wait a minute. You mean there's really a machine?
Certainly. It's out in the garage. It's been there, just sitting, waiting, ever since Victor used it last.
She couldn't be serious. She just couldn't. A machine to send people into space? Where did these people end up? If you didn't go into space with at least something like a spacesuit, you're sure to end up dead. Elsa, as dear and kind as she was, had to be insane.
I think I should go.
Joey stood. Elsa's shoulders slumped, and it looked to be an effort to put her cup back on its saucer. She sniffled, and used the handkerchief to dry her eyes again. Why'd she have to do that? Why couldn't he just leave? All he wanted to do right now was go home and sleep until his body didn't hurt any more.
Where are you going to go?
Home?
And after that, where will you go?
To school like I always do.
And is that really what you want out of your life?
Well, what else is there?
There's the machine.
Elsa had stopped crying and fixed Joey with a cold stare. Joey got a chill. She was offering him something. He was sure that's what she was doing. She was offering the only thing she had. But to what end? Joey would have to wait, because if there was a machine, and he could have a chance just to look at it, perhaps everything would be different. He could come here instead of to school and study the machine. Wouldn't that be the best? He could reverse engineer the machine and see how it worked. He could get the machines into the hands of NASA and maybe even get a job working there. He could revolutionize the space industry. He could be a hero. Yes! He swallowed hard. Had he sounded too eager? What if she really was a crazy old woman who was trying to lure him into the garage so she could kill him? Why would she have bandaged him then? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He had to go for it. He just had to.
Let me find my keys, and we'll go have a look-see.
Elsa got up slowly. Joey wanted to help her, but his body was still not responding as quickly as he would have liked, and even when it did, pain would rocket through his limbs, albeit not as intensely, since she'd given him that minty liquid. She shuffled across the kitchen and fetched the keys from a wooden box that hung on the wall by the back door. Although the key looked brand new, there was something about its style that hinted it was significantly older than it appeared. Joey opened the back door from the kitchen and held Elsa's arm as they went down the back steps. They both took the steps gingerly and one at a time. As soon as they were down, a light in the garage came on. Joey was momentarily startled, as he hadn't suspected there would be any light in the backyard. Much like the inside of the house, the backyard was in meticulous condition, with a trimmed hedge dividing the yard from the driveway and a row of flowers in the flower bed. It was something that Joey suspected would have been on one of those old shows his parents would have watched, like Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver.
I try to get out here every day and do a little something. Makes me feel like I'm still worth my salt.
Joey chuckled politely. Elsa's aged hand had a little trouble getting the key into the lock. Joey wanted to help her, but didn't. He tried to show some restraint. He tried to imagine what the machine was going to look like. He tried to picture all the wires and tubes and hoses. Did it have a launch pad, or a pod, or a large computer console? What? Why couldn't she just get the door open? Why didn't she hurry up? At long last the key slid in, and she started to turn it in the lock, and stopped. She let out a long breath.
I don't think I can go in there.
What?
Why?
She didn't turn and look at him.
I just can't do this. I lost my only son and my husband to this machine.
You don't know that they're lost. Maybe there's something about this machine that we can figure out together, something to bring them back.
I'm sorry. This wasn't a good idea.
Elsa turned the key back, and before she could pull it free, Joey put his hand on hers to stop her.
We have to at least try, don't we?
Elsa turned and looked up at Joey.
Yes, I think we do have to try.
She unlocked the door and opened it. The hinges squeaked loudly as she pushed it open. Before she stepped into the room, she reached in and flipped on the lights. Joey's imagination exploded when he saw everything was covered with white sheets and dust, everything that was, save one piece of equipment. The one piece that wasn't covered was a tall cylinder with a mirror-like finish. It reflected the light in every direction. There was a hair-thin line that made the outline of an oval on the front of the machine.
There it is.
Yes, there it is. Joey's eyes were wide with wonder as he looked at it. Because everything else was presently covered, he didn't want to ask permission to remove anything. Not just yet, anyway. He followed her into the garage. There was only a walkway up to the machine, and it looked as though the rest of the room was filled with this machine. It could have just been a trick of all the sheets draped over everything. There was a single set of faint footprints that led up to the machine. Elsa didn't appear to notice these. Joey assumed they belonged to Victor.
Joey, I have to ask you something. Please don't think me a crazy old woman.
That was asking for a lot at this point, but Joey still had to give her the benefit of the doubt, as the machine was here.
Ask. If you should ever decide to use this machine, and if by the off chance you ever see my Victor or my Hector, could you please ask them to come home, even if only for a short time?
Okay, Joey was now certain that she was completely insane. There was no way that he was going to be using this machine, ever. Not until he could figure out what it did and how it worked. He could spend years here studying all the equipment hidden under all those sheets and calling to him to lift their shrouds and discover them, reveal them to the world. That's what he wanted. But he had to humor Elsa or he'd never get the chance. "Yes, Elsa, I will." They stopped in front of the machine. On the side of the oval door was a silhouette of a button. Joey pushed it. With a gasp of escaping air, the door popped out and slid to the side. It didn't appear to have any hinges and wasn't attached to anything. It just floated to the side. "Must be magnetic." Cautiously, Joey poked his head inside. It was white, pure white, and smelled faintly of a woman's perfume. It smelled like his mother's perfume. Joey wrinkled his nose.
"What do you think of it?"
I think it's wonderful." Joey took a step inside. The inside, just like the outside, was perfectly smooth. No seams, no creases, not even a tool mark that would show it was machined. Joey stepped fully inside and felt the walls. They were warm to the touch. He had thought that being metal, and being outside, they'd be cold. He turned all the way around and looked out the doorway at Elsa. She was smiling.
"You look so much like my Victor did that day."
She trailed off, and again dabbed at her eyes with the handkerchief. Joey gave an encouraging smile. He was too enamored with the new toy to do anything else, or even to say anything. There was a button on the inside of the door, just like the one on the outside. Joey's fingers hovered over it for a moment. Did he dare? What would happen? It had been 30 years since this machine had been used. Could it possibly still work? Joey doubted it, though there was the fleeting moment of doubt as he remembered that the door had opened. Joey pushed the button.
"Argman, what's taking so long?"
They had been sitting for far too long. Surely that police cruiser was going to be on them at any moment. Vic had thought they'd at least have enough charge in the engines to get them out of the solar system. Sitting in the Kuiper Belt, they were sitting ducks. At least outside the system, they were in galactic territory and away from the local authorities. They weren't moving nearly fast enough to get out before they were caught.
"Argman!"
Argman growled and snarled.
"I don't care if you're doing the best you can. What's everyone else doing?"
Argman barked and snorted. God, I hate my crew. Vic had been trying to convince Tootsie, the ship's computer, to let him in to change the ship's codes. Now, Vic, you know I can't let you do that.
"Tootsie, do you realize they'll arrest you too?"
I'm a computer. They can't do anything to me.
"They can shut you down."
I've got backup batteries. Besides, I didn't break any laws. I can't.
You allowed your codes to be changed. They'll know that. Plus, they can remove your backup batteries.
Vic, do you really think they'd allow me to be deactivated? I'm a valuable asset. Leave it to me to get the only computer in the galaxy with a moral code.
Please?
You're so sweet, Vic. But no. Vic banged his hands on the wall of the ship.
Now look here, Tootsie. I don't have much time. I need you to let me change those codes, or let Mike get in there, and we'll see what he can do.
Mike was the ship's engineer and prone to fits of sudden randomness. There was a long pause from Tootsie. Now he was making some headway. Vic, you wouldn't.
Mike!
All right. I'll change the codes. I don't feel good about doing it, but I'll do it.
Thanks, babe. I owe you one.
One what?
I don't know. Maybe I'll hook you up with a computer dating service computer or something.
Vic! Tootsie's electronic voice sounded as if she was actually embarrassed. Vic landed in his seat, and it instantly reformed to his body shape. The view screen still showed the same blank area of space. At least they weren't spinning anymore. That had gotten old fast.
So please tell me we're almost ready to go.
A speaker crackled overhead with a scratchy voice.
We're almost ready to go.
Great, Mike. How much longer?
5, maybe 10 minutes.
Mike.
I'm kidding. We'll be ready to go in 1 minute.
Great. Tootsie, get me on the general con. And how's it going with changing our numbers? Almost done with the change. You didn't tell me, but I assumed you wanted me to change them after we jumped.
Right. General con, please. SS Acid Rat.
The voice over the speakers was loud. Far too loud. It had to be the police. No, it couldn't be the police. They were so close to getting away. What they'd taken wasn't even worth that much anyway. At least not on the Bomba planet it wasn't. Why was this police cruiser going out of their way to catch him?
SS Acid Brad, you will cease the charging of your engines. We are en route to your position and we will retrieve you momentarily. If you attempt to flee, we have been given permission from GCP Central Office to give chase. You will not get away.
Permission from the GCP Central Office? That was the Galactic Patrol. They never gave any local systems permission to leave their own solar system. It had to be a bluff.
Mike, almost there, boss. 30 seconds.
We may not have 30 seconds. And they didn't. The police cruiser grew larger in the rear monitor. The ship looked nice with all its blue and gold. Too bad they were being pursued by it, and Vic spent little time admiring. Mike, get us out of here. I need whatever you've got, and I need it now.
Boss, if we don't charge the engines fully, and they aren't lying about chasing us, we'll never get away. They've got to have enough power charged to follow us, and we wouldn't be able to change course enough times to get away. 15 seconds.
The port for the tractor beam opened on the police cruiser. This was going to be too close. Vic wanted to shout, but his jaw was locked tight. Argmon had 2 hands on the wheel, and his other 2 hands ready to hit the buttons at Mike's word that the engines were fully charged. Vic leaned back in his seat. It couldn't have been 2 seconds before Argmon hit the button when a vaguely familiar sound of rustling leaves, followed by charged air, wafted to his nose. Not again. You've been listening to V&A Shipping, written and read by J.R. Murdoch. For more information about this podcast and its author, please visit www.ofgnomesandDwarves.com. V&A Shipping is released under a Creative Commons Attributions Only, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives Works 3.0. Feedback can be sent to jrmurdoch@ofgnomesandDwarves.com, or you can find me at Twitter or Facebook as J.R. Murdoch. There's a lot of podcast fiction out there. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this one.